Hello, welcome to Text Intergenerational Dialogue Hour on Text Education. The philosophy here is to help bridge the generational gap to build stronger, more resilient African communities in the diaspora. Today's topic of discussion is parenting and enculturation challenges for African heritage parents in the West, a parent's perspective. And today's discussion will be a panel discussion, and I will take you through the panel members that we have here today. And like I said, it's really going to be perspective based, and I hope you will take a lot from today's discussion. Thank you and welcome. Now, I've got the panelists here, and like I said, this is purely to help other parents out there to actually relate to other parents' feelings and the challenges that they are having in raising their kids in the West, and hopefully we'll be able to strengthen each other along the way in terms of sharing our perspectives. Now, on the panelists today, we've got African parents and an aspiring African parent, and then we're all professionals who've been settled in the West for a significant amount of time. So we'll start with the introduction. I'll introduce the panelists. I am Idrissa, and I'm also a parent. I am from the Gambia, and I'll go to you, sir.
My name is Julius,
and
I'm from Kenya.
Julius from Kenya, and Saida.
I'm Saida. I'm from Kenya.
From Kenya.
And I'm Modipe from Nigeria.
From Nigeria. Now, in terms of our status, Julius, are you a parent?
I am a parent. I'm
Yes.
a proud dad.
You're a proud dad. And in your case, you're a professional who recently moved into the UK, and then you're looking to bring your parents,
Yes.
your kids with you
Yes.
at the moment. Good. How about you, Saida? You are a parent, and
I
then
am mother of 3.
and you're raising those by yourself.
Yes, I've been a single mother for a while.
How about you?
I'm an aspiring parent.
See, he's an aspiring parent. So, and I am a parent, like I said, I've got teenage boys as well. So it is really a huge prospective discussion ahead. Now, in terms of the topic, we'll be looking at the parenting challenges. Like I said, in terms of our professional work that we all do, that is beside our role as parents, we are also members of the community. So that means we are aware of all the challenges that some other parents are facing in the West. And then we'll use this section as a section to actually discuss those at length. So when we say parental challenges, what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the worries that we face in the West as African parents raising our kids? So for example, like I said, I've got teenage boys. So like at this point when they go out, I'm worried, the stop and search. The friendship choices that they're making, and what could go wrong. What could go wrong?
I think with my kids anyway, I'm speaking with what worries I have with my kids, is the fact that the people they hang around with, and as everything now is so available, drugs, crime, and you really don't know what they're meeting in school, what kind of people, what other children, they're in school, and, the beliefs that I have, and the religion, the way I was brought up is totally different than how people are growing up here. Even so, I did grow up here as well, but I had a very strong culture, religious family at home.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't do certain things because it's not allowed. But with my kids, I have given them a little bit of freedom in their life. So it's just a bit worry, like, is it a good choice for me to give them this a bit of freedom? Also, we do have a lot of one-to-one talk about what kind of people are out there and what kind of things they need to do to protect themselves.
Yeah, I think on that as well, because you've mentioned the environment, there's certain elements that you control as a parent. There are certain elements that are actually beyond you because they're outside of your remit. So that really will take us our focus on the multiculturalism that is something that is well celebrated here, and I think it is. We view it as a positive thing, basically having people from diverse backgrounds all working together. But of course, in terms of your expectations at home, and then people with differing expectations, people who value different things, and then the kids will have to go out and make friends. how does that impact on like you alluded to that? How does that, what sort of worry does that give to you, bring to you at home?
It's a lot of worry because you don't know what they could get up to. But I do believe being very close to your kids is very important, to give them that opportunity of knowing that I can go home and my mother or my father wouldn't judge me even if I've made this this mistake. I find that is very important than them knowing if I go home I'm gonna be get beat up or told off or be grounded. That is when you give them that choice of finding the wrong friends. So I find the relationship that you have with your kids is very, very important.
Excellent. So, of course, like I said, we all of us are in different positions or different stages as parents. For example, like you mentioned, Julius, you recently come into the country as a professional. But of course, you're making preparations at this stage for your family to join you, and that with that you've got a teenage daughter who is already started high school in Kenya, and then she will have to come in here. And I think from experience, because I work in the school system, here the year groups are determined by the birth certificates, not really the academic stages that they are in. So often that becomes a challenge for so many parents and their children when they come in here. It is a case that most likely they will have to skip year groups. They will end up finding themselves in an year group where there are some gaps in their learning. Is that some sort of a challenge, or is it that something that you haven't considered yet?
Something that has been giving me some worries because back home, the way we used to be brought up, you're not just told you're not supposed to do this. It might come with some corporal punishment.
Yeah, true.
And that really, I can say, it really helped us growing up, knowing what is wrong and what is right. And but I'm really worried about the system here because I've heard stories.
Yes, yes.
And I've read the rules. You're not even supposed to be shouting to the kids. There's some things that you're not supposed to do. So I'm really worried, but I hope I'll be able to cope together with my wife and probably have a nice future for the kids.
Yes.
It will be definitely a big change for you and your family. Totally different environment, different rules, as you said, but I'm sure you'll find a way.
Yes. I know, yeah, of course, like I say, sometimes it is like, if we get to that bridge, we will cross it. Yeah, of course, when you get yourself into that situation, then you really will devise what it means to really be able to address the challenges that you come across at that point in time. So if we turn to you, Karen, of course, you are an aspiring parent, you are an established professional, and of course, you are at a stage where you are thinking about it. So what sort of worries or challenges that really are some of the things that are maybe dominating your mind now in terms of raising kids in this country?
It's quite a lot. To be honest, sometimes I feel like there might be a stage where it would have been nice to just even take the kids back to Africa and let them just have a feel of their origin, the culture, their what is expected of you as a child, and all of that. But of course, I have my worries, a lot of it, and I have seen a difference between the way I was brought up and the way kids here have been brought up, and there's a huge difference in terms of different perspective when it comes to parenting, how you're supposed to discipline your child, the kind of conversations you're supposed to have with them. So, back home, for example, at certain age, you're not supposed to know anything regarding like sexual education. They're not supposed to be taught certain things, like a taboo, you know.
Yeah.
We're not saying it's a good thing that it's a taboo, but there needs to be like some restrictions with like what they watch, information they take in. And you're in a society where it's almost as if there's no restriction when it comes to that. Like, kids are taught things in school that even the parents haven't had chance to teach them about.
Yeah.
So there's that worry of, okay, how do you manage all of that? Like, when I become a parent, how do I get to talk to my children about these things in a way that doesn't look like I'm limiting them? At the same time, I want to inform them. How do I discipline my children in a way that it doesn't look like I'm punishing them? At the same time, I want them to be upright, to know what is good from bad, how to be able to, you know, as themselves judge what kind of friendship they should be in and what kind of people they should hang around and the kind of things they should do. Like Saida said, it's also very important for me to want to have that kind of relationship with my child where they will be able to tell me what they're going through, ask me questions when they're confused. And so I think it's like also a learning process. There's no perfect parents.
There's not a book.
So,
Yes.
no, there's no book for it for
Yes.
you to read and pass the exam. So it's just something, even as a parent, you get to learn every day, even through your kids. And each child is kind of different. So you need to know what works for child A, maybe different from what works for child B. And you have to know how to manage both. So they are the kind of conversations that myself and my husband we talk about. For example, when we're watching a movie and a child is misbehaving, I'm like, is that the point where you spank the child? But then again, you don't want to do that, you know, to cause any form of trauma for the child. But I think it also boils down to the understanding you have with like your husband or your wife, you know, and how to discipline your child or how to raise the child to the best of your ability.
Excellent. And I think you've really made so many valued points in there. And I'll just have to pick on one when you mentioned really understanding that the kids are all individuals. And often as parents, we make that mistake by trying to use a particular child as a benchmark.
Yeah.
Look at your brother, look at your sister. He never behaves that way or this way. Or your friends. Yeah. Forgetting that they're all individuals. They're all very different. And then really having that recognition as a parent really often helps in building that stronger individualized relationship with your different children if you have more than one. Excellent. And then, of course, we cannot take the society out of this equation. So the issues around stereotyping, discrimination, as I think it is a known fact. Like we face that as Black people, and I think we can say that is a social issue, is a social challenge, and often as adults we find a way to work through with that and through that. But young people, unfortunately, also become victims of that, and then they haven't got those developed social skills to be able to maneuver through in that, and sometimes they get caught up in that. So of course, when in the education system, the issues around academic stereotyping, when the teachers or the school authorities don't actually expect much from their child because of their skin color, they don't get pushed, and so sometimes they just settle for the very minimum for them. And even though you as a parent at home, you will want that child to be pushed, and then sometimes that could really be frustrating for parents because you could see the potential, but they just happy to have them in that middle group, and then they're ticking the boxes for them. So those are some of the issues that we as parents is beyond our hands. We cannot control, but it is really frustrating for so many parents as well. The issues around law enforcement, the stop and search, how disproportionately young Black men, boys, will be stopped on the way just because they look on the path. Yeah, so issues like that. So, and these are some of the challenges and worries that we've listed. Thank you.
Sorry to cut you short, but it's such a shame, like, in this generation that we're in, that racism still continues. My kids have experienced racism in school, and, you know, it's just so sad to see that that age still knows, because to me, I believe racism comes from home. It's not something that you're born with to
No,
be racist.
I agree.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So it's heartbreaking to know this thing is still continuing.
Yes.
And that's quite disappointing, because you think as diverse as a place like England is, they would have gotten used to knowing that the next person to you could be black, and you have to reach out to that person, get used to it, understand the fact that we cannot all be the same skin color or from the same place, and just be nice, basically.
Yeah.
So it's quite depressing that that's still happening, and people as young as your kids, they still have to go through such experience.
Excellent. I think we've actually done justice to that particular segment. So I think the next one really would be for us. I want also look at some of the specific challenges that we have as parents in terms of let's say the economic realities of our life in the West. As mainly African parents living in here, we've got to support their families, but also will have a huge dependent list somewhere that they've got to support those ones as well, because we were raised in a particular way that we look after our elderly. We don't really take them to adults' homes or care homes. We keep them at home and look after them. And often the extended family structures, there is a lot of pressure on us living in the diaspora or in the West. So, and also that would mean we'll have to do extended hours of work, and then we'll have to work on social hours. And sometimes we're not always present with the kids when really they need their parents around them. So whether these are weekend shifts or they got into football or they're into other extracurricular activities. So let's really focus on that difficult balancing act that we have as African parents. And are there any suggestions? How do we mitigate that? And we know actually absent parents in the lives of our kids. Can anybody throw any light on that in terms of the specific challenges that we have, the economic realities of our life in the West?
So basically, like working overtimes and things
Yes.
that you don't spend time with your kids.
With the kids, yeah.
Well, everybody's different. With me, I make sure I spend time with my kids. Like, I don't care what I have to do.
Yeah.
I have to make, as a single mom with 3 kids, like 3 individuals that I work with at home, and they all like different things, like to do different things. And there's a lot of, because I wouldn't say it's a broken home. It's a perfect home for me and my kids, but the other parent is missing.
Yes.
So sometimes I grew up with both parents, and I can only try to feel how they're feeling.
True.
So I do the best I can to have the one-to-one conversation at least once a month with the 3 kids individually. So anyway, a breakfast, lunch, dinner outside, not with all of them, just one, and just try to get to know them emotionally and what they like, what's bothering them in school, in life, and what kind of goals or things they want to do. So to me as a parent, I find that very important, especially as a single parent, because I can't be both. And if I don't make time, I can only imagine how my kids will feel later on in years.
Sure.
So they already feel abandoned with the other one. I don't want them to feel abandoned with me. So I always make time.
Yeah, that's really a very, very touching point. And just to expand on that as well, in terms of sometimes really creating that time, because I think often, like I said, we do extended hours of work over times, and then when we're not at work, we really want some time for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then most often, if it's Arsenal playing or Man United, you want to stay at home, really maybe having a go at the dad's here and watching television instead of actually engaging or going outdoors to do something with the kids. So you're not really bonding with them. Because I can speak from personal experience, and I probably would say I'm privileged enough to be working Monday to Friday. But then my boys are playing football, that means I get involved in the weekend football. So I try to support the local coaches, but that means I've got to really taxi around so many other kids to football games. But you'll be surprised, even because of the area I live in is predominantly Black Asian, and like even that football club is dominated by them. So that means there are very, very few parents on a Saturday or Sunday watching the kids. So even their home matches feel like an away game, because the other parents will always dominate, and often they influence the decisions that the referees are making. So the kids will do their hardest, and then all of the hard work gets undone. They feel not supported, and then the heads will drop, and I think that is one thing that parents really need to pay attention to, because if they're really not engaged in that, which is a positive diversionary activity, they end up doing something else because they're not part of a football club or they lost interest.
I'll speak for myself anyway, with what I've seen, and as a parent, I feel like when we parents just pay for that activity or for whatever that, if it's clothes or whatever it is, we're expecting good out of it.
Yes.
And we'll be like, why you didn't score a goal today? Why you didn't do good today? Why I'm not expecting good things like from your football coach and things like that. That kind of put the kids down, because it doesn't mean because you've paid for the club that you're present there. It doesn't mean you showing them that you are proud. So making that half an hour, 1 hour to go to see the football, it is hard. I'm not gonna lie. I've tried to be pulled left and right. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna break down.
Yes.
Is one of them days, and then as in this life we're living, and then the kids come and answer you back, and you feel like, oh my God, I'm gonna just
all the efforts I'm putting in, and you're talking back to me.
So it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie.
True, and I think that is really a point very well made, actually. But I think the key point here is really creating that time to bond with them, but also helping them identify a positive activity that they could engage in and support them in that. So it might really mean sometimes, I know, if they spend extended time on their Xboxes or PS5s, you get you'll have a different level of complaint against them. But of course, really, maybe sometimes taking them on that, if you can, maybe you learn some skills, and just to make sure there is that engagement at home. It's really
I'm
good.
not very good with.
But that's fine. But you're excellent in other areas. So we focus on those as well. Okay, and now I think we will move on to the next area of our discussion, which is the enculturation part of it. So enculturation is really basically the transfer of the cultures that we inherited, or we've taken from our parents to our own children. So basically from one generation to the other generation. And of course, in that, I want to also focus on the language side of it, home languages, because I think we all try. Well, I would say some of us try to really use our native languages, our first languages at home, but then you realize at some point the kids will lose the language, or I don't know, because of the environment out there. But how does that limit our ability to actually raise the kids or transfer those cultural values to our children? Our language, our first language.
Me, I regret not talking my language to my kids, and now my kids, teenagers now, I would say, they always blame me. So like, why you didn't speak, Swahili to us? I would love to know how to speak Swahili. My oldest, I would say she understands, but my second one, I don't think she's really bothered. Like, she wants to, but she doesn't want to understand, like, if I'm speaking Swahili to her. But I regret that, because I see some, especially Polish.
Yes.
They'll speak fluently.
And the
Polish,
Asians as well.
Yes. And English fluently. You're
Yes.
like, wow. Like, I wish that is something maybe, Karen, you could take along. Always teach if you have a language. You have a
Exactly. So I blame my mom for not speaking my language to me,
So
because
you're like my dude.
because I don't know how to speak, but I understand.
Yes.
And then
So it's the same
she was
similar
like,
thing.
oh yeah, it's my fault. I should have taught you how to speak. But I really wish I learned how to, speak my language, and so I can even transfer that to my kids. But I don't know how to speak the language myself. But I do understand.
That's
And
good.
even if not my dialect, I would love for my kids to learn some other language.
But they could learn something, and
It's
that's
a
the
life
food.
skill.
Yeah, of
The
course.
lifestyle
Of course,
that
yeah.
you had. So I
So
intend to go.
those other culture for me is not gonna just end because you
Yeah.
don't know how to speak the language. No, the food, the lifestyle, the mode of dressing, all
Yeah.
of that. It's still definitely going to be passed on to my children.
I think that's really, yeah. You want to add something to it?
Yeah, to me, I also have some regrets because even back home in Kenya, my wife and I come from different communities. My first language and my wife's first language, they're different.
Different, okay.
So our children ended up speaking national language, which is Swahili.
Swahili, yeah.
So I also regret not, but I don't know what
You could have done.
What could I have done?
Yes.
Because I didn't understand my wife's language.
Yes.
She didn't understand my
Yes.
wife's language. So
You had to
we
find
only
a,
talk with Swahili.
yes, you had to find
Up
a
to
common
today.
language, yes.
Yeah, I think
yes.
that's still okay
Yes.
because
Uh,
there's
it
still a
is-
language
yeah,
that
it is.
you all can understand and communicate
Yes.
in.
Yes, but I think the critical point here is, for example, in his own upbringing at home, his parents raised him in a particular way. They've given him some particular cultural values and skills that were communicated to you using your language. So if your language is minus now, you find it difficult to actually transfer those cultural values to your children. Because even the food, if they actually speak the language fluently, they actually know the food better. It has a lot more meaning to them than actually just seeing anything on anybody's menu. If you go to, let's say, a Turkish restaurant and you just see something on their menu, you don't really speak their language, but you just like the taste. Yeah, so it's different connection to actually understanding it, having it in your first language, and actually, yes. But I think these are excellent points that we've hopefully some other parents who are actually in that position will be able to pick on those. In my own case, it's like when my first child, who is 15 now, when he was little, he only speaks my first language at home.
Yeah.
But the moment the brother came along, the next brother came along, then it becomes a completely different scenario at home. So even though I will still do my best and the mom will do their best to speak to them in our first language, between themselves, they were speaking English.
Yeah.
And I happened to work in a school. All of them were attending that school. So then that is where probably I went wrong. Because instead of actually ending the school at school, when I come home, I carry the school with me at home as well. So the conversations that happen all becomes teaching and learning. And so really drawing that boundary line maybe is one regret area for me as well. And of course, so they lost the language in terms of that fluency of being able to speak it, but not really the understanding. So they can still speak the language, but not near anywhere I would expect them to be in their language skills. But of course, thank you very much for really sharing your thoughts on that. So now this is the final segment. We'll go through a bit of a reflection on our own parents, on our own childhood, growing up. Now you grew up, we grew up similar places in the west of Africa, yeah? And then you're all from East Africa, isn't it? Yeah. But of course, this is the same continent, Africa. We will see there are always common denominators anyway. But yeah, so growing up, let's say, how do we describe our own childhood? What sort of environment was there for us?
Okay, to me, when I was growing up, looking at my parents now, to me, my dad was always busy.
Yeah.
He was always looking for money.
He was looking. He was looking for resources to look after the family.
Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, we couldn't spend a lot of time together, but I think that was his duty to look after us. So
yes.
To me, when I was growing up, I would say I spent most of the time with my mom than my dad. Actually, I could go a week without seeing my dad because
the
he
nature
wakes
of
up
his
very
job,
early in the morning and then comes back very late when I'm already asleep. So I don't want to be that dad. I want to actually probably see
get
my
that
kids
balance right between work and also family time.
And also family time. Yeah.
That's good. So in terms of the communal expectations, what sort of environment was there in let's say, for example, respecting common values, or maybe boundaries, social boundaries, and then what sort of relationship do we have with our parents in terms of, are we able to walk to them, look them right into their eyes and actually say words? Are we able to talk back? And what sort of environment was it for us growing up?
I could never answer back. No way. But we did have a lot of good times, if that makes any sense. But if whatever is going on, I could not. It's not something I felt like we could go back and say, you, Dad, why did you... No, it was not like that. Like the way how kids talk now. Yeah. They'll be like, my mum is an idiot. I'm like, hello. Yes. So, do you understand?
So I think that it goes down to the environment, because all the kids can say that to their parents, you lying. Yeah. That's not true. And things like that. Those are phrases that would never come to your mind. Yeah, you'll never say those ones. But of course, the sort of environment these kids find themselves in, because they will hear, when they go into other people's homes, they will hear them say those things to their parents. So don't be completely shocked.
Oh, I had
if they come home and actually use the same phrase on you. So
I've actually experienced somebody called their mother an idiot.
Yes.
And they F off.
Yes.
I literally pulled my daughter by the ear. I was like, get in the car now. And I said, don't you ever say that to me.
Yes.
I said, that's not how you talk to your mother. I said, I know she's your friend, but you don't copy what your friends do. Yeah.
So, yes. Excellent. So that is the classical example of the environment. And then how the sort of position these kids find themselves in. How are they able to know, okay, he or she could say that or do that, but I can't. Because to them, we just all kids. So, yeah.
And this is the part I said to you, it's good to have that friendship, to make sure you communicate, basically. So some parent would have just left it and left the other child say idiot to their mother and say whatever, and left that conversation got home. The kids will try it on you 100%. Yeah. They have tried it so many times. But what I'm saying is the communication, that's where it comes in. So it's something that I saw I didn't like, was from somebody that she talks to. I said, my daughter, let's go and have a meeting right now. So we had a little meeting and I explained why she cannot. Do you understand? So that, because at the end of the day, they are kids. So if you don't explain and teach and guide, they wouldn't know these things.
True.
So it's very important to, when you see something wrong, don't just leave it. Very important to sit down and have that communication.
Yeah. So you want to add something to that in terms of the communal expectation? For example, we all know there were boundaries, and the boundaries were very clear in terms of what we could not cross as kids. But this is not just boundaries that are just set at home. There are universal expectations within the community. So even if you speak to your parents in a particular way, a stranger who is passing will stop
your ass for doing that.
And look at you, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
And then at that point they will deal with the situation, whether they know your parent or not. So there is that universal expectation of kids in terms of their relationship to parents. But there is one thing that has always been present, was love and care. So everybody cared about kids. Respect. So you cannot just go like we have in here, engage in antisocial behavior and maybe smashing bus stops and things like that. Just because the next adult is not your adult, they will walk past you. That cannot happen. The next adult will stop and deal with the situation. But so there was love. There was, even though you would call it tough love, but there is, or there was, and there is still tough love in terms of our relationship, or the relations that we all grew up in Africa. It doesn't really matter which part of Africa you come from. But you've mentioned the environment and how that impacts. And I think as an educational point for the parents in here, is really to be conscious of that. So sometimes we relate to our own upbringing, which is in a different geographical location or different area in Africa, what sort of environment existed. What was it that we were able to do or we could not do? Why are you doing that? But but we forgot what sort of environment is here for these kids, and how do we relate? How do we compare that to the environment that we grew up in? So once we get that understanding, that means we'll be able to rationally analyze the point these kids are in, what sort of influence they're getting, from whom are they having those influences from. So like you said,
social media.
social media as well.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah.
I feel the environment that I grew up, I was led to be a child.
Yes.
And the environment that my kids and all these other kids, they're adults. You know, they're not kids.
So that innocence is taken
Out.
away from them really
From the
quickly.
age of 5 is gone. Do you understand? And I know it's all over the world, but it's the music everywhere you go, is places that we go, the environment in school, the things that they learn. You know, my son is 9. When he came, he was 8. I remember he told me, "Mom, do you know that you have..." You know, I didn't know. Excuse, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you know, it was shocking for me. Like,
it would be, yeah.
Do you understand? It's like, and I have a penis, and looks like this, and does it, you know, everything. He knows literally everything about penis. And he said to me, "You do know that Mum would," you know, when he said that to me, because I was shocked, I was like, "Please don't say that. What are you saying?" And he says, "You do know, Mum, we learn about how to love my body."
Yeah.
So you can have positive and you can have negative at the same time. Is how you see it. So it's a very, as I said to you, at that age, I didn't know anything about fertility. I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about period. Nothing. I was let to be a child.
Yeah.
So I do feel sorry. I always tell my kids, I do feel sorry for your generation because you're not a child.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think because somebody somewhere will make that judgment in terms of, okay, at this age they really need to learn about this, they need to know this, and then and often it's people who are completely detached from this world and the world of those kids anyway, and they're making those decisions somewhere, and then they pass it down the curriculum, and then the teachers are obliged to actually teach.
Sorry to cut you short.
That's
I
fine.
think when it comes to our generation and the current generation, there has to be like a middle ground, because you don't expect kids, like you said, who have been exposed to all sorts of information. Technology these days does a lot. When I was growing up, I had my first phone at the age of, I would say maybe 18. And it was a digital phone, you know, them type where there's no internet. You
Yes,
just
yes, the
you
simple
remember
phones,
the
yes.
snake game kind
Oh,
of phone.
yeah.
That was what I had. I didn't even have money to buy data for that phone to like text. Sorry, it's called airtime credit.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have that much to, you know. So even though I had that phone, it was limited kind of use that I had for it. At the same time, because these children have been born into this technology, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook,
YouTube,
everything, you can't just take that away from them. You can't, because if they don't get it from home, they're going to get it outside.
Sure.
And it's going to be worse outside. So you have to like find a middle ground. Like we're having a conversation in the kitchen this morning where he said he takes his phone from his kids at night because they need to sleep, because at night they have plenty of time. Instead of sleeping, even me as an adult, I'm busy scrolling through social media. And it just takes away a lot of things happening in the present from you. Like even parents, when they're growing up, when they give birth to children, and you have people calling that parent, like, "Oh, can I see the baby? Can I see the baby?" Before you know it, a 6-month-old baby is already struggling with the mother on a video call, wanting to say hello. That's how it starts.
Yes,
so
true.
we need to know where to draw the line to kind of cut off, you know, some things or reduce some things that actually affect these children, and just allow kids be kids. And we cannot compare them to our generation, because when we were growing up, we didn't have access to it. I don't know what I would have done if I had access to technology the way this generation they have access. Probably would be worse. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
That's excellent. Do you have anything additional, or we can move on to the next one? So basically, in the next segment, we'll really look at the rites of passage. For example, we've discussed at length the environment these kids are in, and then that changing environment, like technological impact on the environment that they're growing up in. We've actually reflected on our own childhood growing up on the streets in Africa. But what about that rites of passage? The social rites of passage, let's say, how was it that our parents were able to get us into the social aspect, make us really sociable persons? What was it exactly? What was it they were able to do? How do they introduce us into society?
I would say there's this thing called age group that traditionally is done where I'm from. It's like introducing you to your peers, of which probably you were already friends with them. But
already.
At that time, it's like there's this bond amongst you and your age group, and you know who to go to when you need some form of help or when you need not be alone, So that was that, and there was also like extended family. It was like very traditional for people to know their families, to know like your cousin, your nephew, your nieces, all of that. You know all of them, you interact with them. When you have like community gathering or festive season, they all come together. They probably even sew like the same outfit. There's this bond that brings all of the extended family members together. But these days, I really don't know what to do, because for me, I'm kind of guilty of that. Like, I've been in England for like almost 3 years now, and I haven't seen my niece, who is also in England with me.
Yes.
And when we were back home in Nigeria, we were living in the same area, and we used to see every other Sunday. But now, like, it just also boils down to the always busy lifestyle of wanting to be stable, wanting to be able to look after yourself and have a life for yourself. And you don't know how time just goes by. We talk on phone, but it's not the same. So yeah, that was one thing that our parents were like able to do to make sure people keep in touch and families and all of that. And my mom will actually call me like, have you heard from so person?
Yes.
When last did you talk to so person? So there was that, guidance.
Yeah. So socially, how were you introduced and how were you supported in actually getting that social relationships by the parents growing up?
Okay, to me, in our community, especially for boys, when you finish your lower primary, you take into what is it called, initiation?
Yeah, we do that as well. Yeah.
So you're circumcised.
Yes.
You given like some elder boys who are probably circumcised probably 4 or 5 years ago. They talk to you.
Yes.
They tell you that now from henceforth, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to act like a child anymore. Things like this, I think that really helped. But looking at the society right now, I think people just do it for the purpose of, my child wants to be circumcised like that. But there's not that.
Yes, the order,
The order that was there.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you reflect and try to balance the two, you'll see there's a very big difference.
Yes, a massive one.
Because you'll see that, like, nowadays, even if people have gone through that process, they're still not mature.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, I think now the whole circumcision actually happens very quickly. It's all medicalized now, so it happens within the 4 holes.
There was even traditional one.
Yes.
Yeah, people not involved doctor would go to the river.
Yes.
That's really a celebration, don't you?
Massive one.
It's like a celebration as well.
That's really interesting, because the fact that
like to go and eat their food.
You grew up in East Africa, I grew up in West Africa, but it's very, very similar cultural upbringing in terms of that the cultural rites of passage, the circumcision or the initiation ceremony. Like you said, it's really not just the act of the circumcision itself. It is really the whole package that goes with it, that the educational element in it. When they will have to group us together as a group of young boys And then, like you said, the older or senior boys who've gone through the same ride previously will really be there to guide us. And often there's a lot of poetry, there's a lot of singing. That's what we used to do. There's a lot of poetry, singing, and celebration in there. But in the traditional sense of what we had to undergo, for that period you don't actually see your mom or your sisters, so you're completely kept away from them. So this is a whole wall for men. So where they will have to get you through that. And when you come out of it, you've learned so much. And then when you come back into society, you expect to behave in a particular way. And often, that's what happens.
Do you have a mentor after?
You do, because what happens is all the older boys will be there to look after you lot. But there are elderly who are there, who are actually the custodians of what actually happens. So they direct. And then, so when you come back, there is, in our case, there is a lot of poetry, there's a lot of singing, but there is a lot of coded language that is used in there. And then you will learn those coded languages, and then you will have to interpret them. And then there are expectations in those coded languages as well. So when you go back home, you will never call your mom, let's say, by the first name. You will never call any of your elder sisters by their first name. It has to be senior somebody.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah.
I'm going to go and teach my kids this.
Exactly. So if you're eating, if you come back home from there, the table etiquette and everything is taught in there. That you don't really start eating and start looking into people's eyes. And then, because of course it's the shared basin, we all eat from one basin. Do you do that? Everybody eats from their own side?
Yeah.
And then even with that, you've got to have manners. So those things are all taught. So it's not just social, but that cultural education happens within a context. So, yes.
I've got a question. I do understand the educational aspect of this initiation process. But I also kind of feel like it's going to be some sort of trauma to the child.
You see, yeah, of course. That's where you're coming in. Your profession as a mental well-being specialist will come in.
You just get taken away from your parent. At what age does this initiation take place?
So that
13, 14.
13, 14.
And then it could even be lower than that, because I remember when I was going through it, I was much younger. I haven't even been to primary school yet, so I was probably looking at 6 or so at that point. So there were much older ones in there. So that means we get the easiest ride as kids. So you get carried wherever they're going, and then you don't have to go through. But of course, you are better when you're slightly older. When you that is when you are able to do the education that is required. But believe me, I wouldn't say that is actually trauma. It might look like that at that point because you're taken away from your mom. But of course you see your dad. Your dad comes there regularly. You see your uncles. You see your elder brothers who are there.
Let's not disregard the pain of circumcision to start with.
Okay.
Because I feel like I've had nephews who got circumcised, although as a baby, and it was sleepless nights of cries.
Yes.
So imagine someone who is 6 years old, who would know what pain is, and then you get circumcised by the strangers. Your parents are not there. And then while you're still going through that pain, you're told to do this, do this, do this, do this. You have to be like this now. It's just a lot to take in.
Okay. I understand the angle where you are coming from, but of course, in terms of the discussion focus today, we try to understand that those rites of passage that we undergo, and then the fact that these kids in here that we're raising don't have to go through those or are not aware of those. So the opportunities that our parents had through the society, through the community, to educate us on certain aspects of society, we do not have that. We do not have that at our disposal in here to be able to support our kids in terms of that social and cultural education. So that is one area that we need to be aware of, that those opportunities were availed to our parents, but we do not have those opportunities in here. What sort of substitute do we need to have in place for those things? So what about the economic rites of passage? How financial education, how do they introduce us to money? How do we become self-independent? At what sort of age? Is there an expectation on us?
To
Or how
me?
do we manage the money that we get? Who gives us money and for what? Can we demand money, let's say?
I would say I'm a bit strict and soft at the same time.
No, I mean your own.
My money or
No,
the
no,
kids' money?
you growing up,
Oh,
you as a child growing up.
I didn't have money, no.
Yes, and in terms of how were you introduced to money? How do you manage it, and what were your expectations? What were your demands on money?
I was the last of 6. I am the last of 6 children, and I have elder ones who hand me cash. And when I do like 1 or 2 favors for them, they
Yes.
hand me cash. So I had money. It was funny because then I had money. I didn't know what to do with the money. So sometimes my mom would borrow the money, and when I asked for it back, she'd tell me, I bought you this.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Or sometimes even my elder ones who gave me that money will come and borrow the money, and sometimes they return it. So
Yeah.
it was more like I didn't know how to manage money until I think I started having need for it. Then
Yeah,
I
need.
had to like open an account. So I was kind of mischievous. So I could request same thing from all of my siblings.
Oh, that is the beauty of being the last one, isn't it?
And I would get from at least maybe 2 or 3 of them. Maybe without the others knowing they've given me. So yeah. Anyway, so I kind of had money growing up as a child. So yeah. And I was kind of prudent to spend. I didn't just go around spending because I don't know when the next handout will come in. So I was kind of careful.
I think just to buttress one of the points you've mentioned there, really, that element about family bond and family support. So supporting you was not just the responsibility of your parents, your sisters and the elder brothers took it upon themselves to really look after you. And often here, everybody is for themselves. Even siblings, it's like you will lead your own independent life, I will lead my own independent life. It's really not the environment that we grew up in.
Yeah, it still goes back to the point of what you said about people not caring these days.
Yeah.
They don't just care. So whatever you want to do with whatever you've got is none of their business.
True. So because we've discussed about the demand for money. Like you said, you were given money at that point, but you don't really have a demand for it because you do not set your sight on things that because let's say the environment wasn't you. Do we know internet or online games, online purchases that you could make, or the expensive designers or whatever that you could buy? So you were content with what you had.
I was a child.
You were a child. You
I
like
think-
she mentioned, you lived like a
Yeah,
child at that
yeah,
point.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, me, the only money that I had, I was going out to buy street food.
That's it. And you are happy with that.
Yes, so whoever feels like to give me a handout, I take and just buy food. But no, I never used to have a lot of money like you've been spoiled every corner. No.
Okay. And then you had a perfect childhood, even in that scenario.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
But now, what about our own children now? Their demand for money, their need for money.
With me, with my children, like I've opened each, because you have to be 11 to have your own bank account. So my first and second have their own bank account. And if I feel like they've been good, like schoolwork, house chores and everything else, I do put money in for each individual every month.
Yes.
And I tell them, if you spending whatever, if you spend it all at once, don't come back and say, Mommy, I need more, because myself, I'm looking for more. So that to me is independency, and I prefer for them, especially their girls, even my boy, but sometimes they could be like, oh, Mom, I'm going to see my friend. Anything could happen. I would rather for them to have their own bank account and like, you know what, I need to buy sweets, rather than calling, Mom, I need money. So they have that freedom to, and to me, I find it is very important. I don't want my kids to be expecting money from friends or people and, other people, even family is, I just want it to know it comes from Mommy, or if, whoever that is close to them, and then they can spend it.
Yeah. So the other side is really the availability of technology to kids. So really now we're really not talking about needs, but we're talking about wants. When they've got access to all those shopping sites and they're scrolling through, I want that, and then some parents really experience that at home, and then it often ruins their relationship with the kids, because the friends that they go out with, perhaps they're the only child or two, or maybe both parents are actually working and they're earning a lot they can afford, but you're probably in a different position. Then the kids will come with their demands, and I can't really afford this. And then how do you handle that kind of a situation? Because some parents find themselves in that.
As I said to you before, it's a communication. Like I don't struggle with that. Sometimes my little boy can play up here and there, but mainly it's just video games.
Okay.
But with my older kids, even my younger kid, they've wanted Jordans for years, And I was like, you do know it's only me that I work and provide. I said, you have to wait. Yeah. Do you understand? So they would never beg me, oh, why is this person has it, why this. Even my son, when I go shopping, he's very good at bargains. He's like, Mom, don't buy this. Do you understand? So I think communication to me, parenthood, I know we don't have a book to read every day, but what has helped me with my kids is communication, right? Mommy doesn't have this much money. I can't do it today, but hopefully in 2-3 months, I'll be able to get it for you. It's simple as that. And if I don't, I don't. So sorry, I'm still struggling myself. They have to know. I always tell my kids, you live in this house, you eat, it's warm, you have a bed.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So these are the things that you need to understand that you need in your life. The Jordans, the whatever that you need is not important. So if Michael has them, good for him. Doesn't mean you need to have them. Yeah. Appreciate at least you've got shoes. So I always, as you said, the culture part, I always put that in. When I grew up, my family were quite wealthy, but I didn't get anything. My dad literally moved us to the village. We lived in the village. We didn't live in a nice villa. Yes. Even so, he had the villas, but it was just for school holidays. Yes. Do you understand? Yes. So I grew up with people with no shoes. I grew up with, literally in the village. Yeah. So I never had shoes. It's only the time I wear shoes is to go to school. And that was it. So I said, you need to appreciate these things. Whatever food that we have, that's what we have. So communication, as me as a parent, I find that has helped me with my kids. Yeah.
You can see Dad has done an excellent job in there, because at that point, Dad has prepared you for the life today. Then you're able to cope.
Exactly.
If you were spoiled at that point, when you find yourself in this situation, you wouldn't be able to cope. And I think
would have struggled a lot.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes. So, I think that's excellent, really, contributions from all of you in terms of sharing our perspectives on this topic. And so the take home here is really in terms of the economic education. How can we actually involve our kids into the financial side of things? Let's say getting them to sit down and do the household budgets, and maybe giving them money, because you can't really give them all the information about your earnings, but really getting them involved in really looking after or bringing some shopping home, so that they know now the money that you are having is actually going into certain key essential elements in the house. It's not just there sitting in your pocket to be spent on the excesses that they will demand for.
I do that.
All right.
I'm not gonna lie. I say, right, I've got 500 this month, and that's it. This is to pay that. It was finished. It's finished. So I do that every month with my kids. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think really that thing you talked about, being open and communication, it's something because
they know everything.
They need to know. If you don't tell them, they will assume the wrong things, and that might get them into trouble. So they need to know that, oh, I can't throw tantrums for this. I'm not getting it because it's not available.
Yeah, I showed them my bank account. See? So don't come back. And I find me being open and telling them the truth, it makes them aware and understand. Because I've grown up in different homes when I was young. And I've seen how different parenting. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm not. I learn every day.
Yeah, we all do.
It's just, I feel like the parents who hide everything, the kids don't understand that, and then they go to the environment in schools and, you know, football, whatever else they do, they see different people, different household.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So, oh, she's got nice shoes, like I want them shoes. Why can my mom not buy them? Like, she works.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
True.
So it is really important to that communication, as I always say. Tell them the truth. This is how much. I don't tell them how much I earn, and I do kind of put hides away, and I'll just leave some in one account, and I'll say, this is what I have, and this is what we can do, and that's it. But on the side, I'm not gonna lie, I do spoil my kids here and there, so it's not like I keep telling them I don't have, because I find that that's not good either. So it's good to give them a little, also for them to understand my mom has a budget and has a limit, so I can't keep asking for certain things that she can't afford.
Right, thank you
That's
very
brilliant.
much. Yes. And then, gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much. That has been really thought-provoking
Thank you
and
for having
really for
us.
sharing your perspective. Thank you.